Video is an introduction to liminal times. I came across this concept when I was researching the Fae and wanted to look into it a bit more. And also there's a few tarot cards at the end that link in with this I'd like to share with you as well. So what are liminal times? They are times of transition from one state to another. It comes from the Latin word limens, which means limit or threshold. It is when you have left or about to leave what you know and are familiar with, but have not yet replaced it with something else, that in-between time. In nature, there are liminal times, and these are sunrise, sunset, noon, midnight, solstice, and equinox. Okay, so liminal times are when you are between the old and the new. It's a time of unknowing, uncertainty, possibility, and ambiguity. Liminal times can be planned or unplanned. They are points after which life is completely different. Life can be divided into before and after the event. So some examples might be birth, death, changing jobs, health, relationships, retirement, just to name a few. In magic and spiritual belief, in this space of not knowing, you have to trust yourself and your intuition. Trust your path and the events occurring. Think to yourself, are things actually falling apart the way you might fear, or are they actually falling into place? You have a more powerful new beginning if you have a definite ending to what came before, followed by some liminal space. Okay, and then I came across the Roman god Janus, who really symbolizes this idea of liminal time. In ancient Rome, he was the god of beginnings, gates, transitions, duality, doorways, passages, and endings. His face was on doorways and archways like this one, and he symbolized change. He could see into the past with one face and into the future with the other. And often one face would be younger and one face would be the same character but older. He was worshipped at the beginning of the harvest, marriages, deaths, and other beginnings or endings. And he is the namesake of January. Okay, then I come on to these two cards. Now, I pulled these last week and wasn't quite sure how to share them. I felt there was more information to come. And when I was researching liminal time, I realized they linked in with that. So when you're listening to this video, the messages from these cards might be relevant to a situation in your life at the moment. Or perhaps if you're listening in the future, it's relevant then. It may not be relevant right now, but just some concepts that you might like to reflect on. So we start off with the Three of Wands on the left here. The traditional reading of this card is that it's good for business and travel. So the number 3 is always creative. It's about making plans, having ideas, and wanting to get moving. And wands represent the fire element. So they're all about action, activity, going out into the world, ambition, drive, desire, enterprise, and risk-taking. So my take on this card in this context is that this man here is looking out to the ships at sea and to the mountains beyond, and he wants to discover and experience and get immersed and involved in what's going on out there. But in order to do that, he needs to leave the land where he is. He needs to let go of that wand that he's holding on, get on one of these boats and set off. At this point where the card appears, it's just an idea, it's a plan, it's a desire that hasn't happened yet. And be aware, if you're relating this to your own life, this doesn't have to always be a physical change, okay? It could be mental, it could be emotional. So another interpretation of this card, the traditional one, is that these ships are taking off from port with all of his goods, and he's dreaming of the fortune he will reap if all goes well with the journey. It's a risk he's taking, and he has to wait and let time pass to see how the journey fares. So this is about making a move and having the courage to be enterprising. So that's another possible read of the card. So the advice here is to act on an idea or a desire that you've got. There's some sort of opportunity, and don't be afraid to make your move, even though you don't know how it will go. Okay, just trust. Okay, so the second card I've got, which I think really represents liminal time every time it appears, is the Fool. So this card's all about potential. It's card 0 in the tarot, so it's that moment in time just before something happens. It represents the start of a new journey, path, or adventure. And when you're starting out on the journey like the Fool here, you don't know what will happen or how it will go. You've got ideas, you've got hopes, you've got dreams, but you don't know yet. So there's an element of just blind faith and trust. He's stepping off that cliff there, even though the dog is barking to warn him. So there can sometimes be with this card an element of folly or naivety, but perhaps we should interpret that as faith. That's up to you. The other thing to notice with this card is that he travels very light with little baggage from the past or whatever journey he's just finished. It's a positive card because the sun is shining, he's looking up, his attitude is positive and hopeful, and he holds this white rose. So that's a symbol of innocence and purity, and says that he will learn a lot along the way. So message of this card: a new path awaits, a new business, a new job, a new task, a new mindset, but there's no need to rush. Okay, so I hope you got something out of those cards and enjoyed the video. Thank you for listening.